Hey everyone, my name is Danny Wilcox and I'm here to show you some wire wrapping techniques. Today we are going to learn how to make what I call the barrel coil, which looks like this. If you can see it, it looks very intricate and nicely done, but it's a very easy wrap. So to start off, I have 3 different size gauges. I have a short piece of my thick wire. I'm using 20 gauge. You could use 18, 16. You could even use something smaller like 24 if you wish to make something very small and intricate. And then the next size up I have 24 gauge. It's a little bit thinner than the thickest one. And then I have a 28 gauge, which is pretty thin. So to start off, we'll take the 24 gauge and the 28 gauge and begin wrapping the 24 gauge with the 28. So essentially you're taking the smallest wire and start twisting it right around the 24 gauge. And we just do that for the entire length of the wire. I'm trying to keep it, you don't have to worry about keeping it super tight right now. We'll just kind of wrap it around, but make sure it's not too loose so that when you were to tighten it, that's going to be looking all loose, essentially. So yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap that up. A way that I found to do this a bit quicker is I pinch the 2 wires once I've gotten it going, and I kind of take my whole hand and I go like this and it twists right around my hand. Doing it this way, the thin wire doesn't get all kinked up. If you were to just hold it tightly and start spinning it, it'll kink this up and it'll eventually break. So you have to take the whole wire and make sure the whole wire spins with it. You can see this is what we're doing. So it doesn't look very pretty right now, but in the end we'll tighten it all together and it'll look just fine. There are other ways to do this with a drill, and it makes it a lot quicker because this can be pretty tedious. And I'll show you that in a segment once I'm done with this. Sometimes you'll notice it starts wrapping back down on itself, so you have to be careful that you continue moving down the length of the wire, not staying in one spot where it might go back on itself, making bumps, making it uneven. Tedious, but it's a really cool technique to make an interesting looking, intricate weave pretty simply. Okay, so there I've got it all wrapped up, and although it doesn't look very even, this is how we make it even. There's one spot down here where I was rushing a bit and I didn't do it. I'm gonna undo that and just take it out of there just so it looks nice. Now you can use really any length, and obviously the more wire you use, the longer your barrel coil will be in the end. So it'll just take a bit of practice to kind of determine how long you want to make the initial cut of the wire so that it's the length you want. Okay, so there it is. Once again, kind of uneven, but our 28 gauge is wrapped around our 24 gauge. To straighten it all out, what I do is I put a kink at one of the ends by making a little loop, so it's not going to slide all down the wire. And I'll hold it with one hand while, actually I'll use some pliers because it's kind of hard, it slips out of my fingers. So I'll take one pair of pliers, grab it right here on the end, take this wire and hold them close, but don't pinch them all the way. You just slide it down. See how that's tightening it up? And if it gets too hard and it doesn't want to slide down the rest of the way, because maybe it was twisting up too much, you can do the reverse, do the other end. Tie a little loop, then go down to the opposite end. Hold it, take it, slide it down. And you see, I'll unkink this end. And we have a nice, tight, wire-wrapped portion. So to finish off the barrel roll, to get it to look like this, all we do is we take our 28 gauge and we just twist it up. Same as we did with this first one, we just do it again. So I like to start with a little bit of the fresh unwrapped wire, wrapping that around to secure it. And then we'll take this end and feed it around, twist it around, just as we did before. It's nice to have this a little bit loose or a little bit spread apart, because as you wrap it around the thickest wire, it's going to want to push it down, and if it's got nowhere to go, this wire, the 24 gauge, will snap somewhere in between here. So if you have a little bit of gap between the weave here, it'll have some room to spread apart, and it essentially will give you a nice coil without it breaking. And there you are. I'm going to trim up these wires at the base. Wrap it around a couple more times. Trim it. And there you have what I call a barrel coil. Now, to add a little bit more detail to this, and to make it look a little bit nicer, in my opinion, what I do is I take another piece of a thinner wire, whether you can use 28 gauge or 24. It just depends on how thick and meaty you want your coil to look. So I'll snip off a good portion, pretty long, fairly long, longer than your original. And what I do is I start wrapping it in between the gaps of the barrel coil. And what this does is it fills in all the gaps, all the little spiraling sections. And it just makes it look really cool, and it just fills it out, and it adds detail, and almost like a candy cane. So you can see how we're going in between the gaps as we twist it around the barrel coil. You want to just take your time doing this to make sure that you're not skipping sections and it's flowing nicely. And just make sure that each twist follows the original twist of the coil, even out to the ends beyond the twist. Okay? And then snip off the excess, save it for later, and there you have it. A barrel coil where it's all filled in. It's a great accent piece to wire wraps, and it can be used just, you could take this and just twist it into a pendant or a ring or bracelet, and you have a nice little accent piece that's really easy but also very intricate, and it's very aesthetically pleasing. There you have it. Next I'll show you how to do it with a drill, which will take a lot less time It's a lot nicer, a lot easier way to do it once you get the hang of it. Over and out.